Available at Hubbard's Agency, Kirani James Boulevard, St. George.
It's new, innovative and classy, and a cut above the rest. Your one-stop shop for bathtubs, kitchenette, customized doors and windows, and even a new paint job. We also sell quartz and solid surface countertops. At M&N Hardware, we offer best prices, excellent service, efficiency, and reliability. Visit us at Dusty Highway, Grandin, St. George, or call telephone number 440-6757. M&N Hardware, from foundation to roof. Let's build together.
Hills and Valley Med Care Center, located on Grenville Street, St. George's, has a highly professional team that gives excellent service in massage therapy, physiotherapy, speech therapy, medical consultation, and more. Hills and Valley Med Care Center sells a wide range of medical supplies, offers home visits for patients in Grenada and Carrier Crew, and opens Monday to Saturday, 10 a.m. through to 7 p.m. Visit or call Hills and Valley Med Care Center today, 435-6904.
Raise it high up the ladder, let we set it on fire. A little more calypso, forget the funk and the disco. A little more limbo, a little more shango. Kindly greasy pole, and we don't dance on the maple. Raise it high up the ladder, let we set it on fire. A little more calypso, forget the funk and the disco. A little more limbo, a little more shango. Kindly greasy pole, and we don't dance round the maple. Raise it high up the ladder, let we set it on fire. A little more calypso, forget the funk and the disco. A little more limbo, a little more shango. Kindly greasy pole, and we don't dance round the maple. Raise it high.
Get serious. Get bop.
Available at Hubbard's Agency, Kirani James Boulevard, St. George.
Raise it high up the ladder, let we set it on fire.
Good evening once again, folks. It is indeed a pleasure to be with you this beautiful Friday evening. And of course, it is time for OUI Culture. The team is here already. Livingston is here. Scholar is here, and joining us again this week, Mrs. Gloria Payne Banfield, and we will be joined by Reese shortly. So do stay with us, folks. We've got a wonderful program lined up for you this evening. In fact, last week we looked at the rise to prominence of the late Dr. Eric Matthew Gary, former Prime Minister of Grenada. And, we looked at many of his achievements over the years. As a matter of fact, from 1951 up to about Expo 69. And this evening we continue from there. And we want to look at how, or some of the events, or some of his actions that caused him to lose power in Grenada. There's been so much that has happened in Grenada over the years, and Mr. Gary has done a lot for this country, and so every time the history of Grenada is discussed, his name is always at the forefront. So let me say a special good evening to the team. Livingston, how are you doing this evening?
I'm pretty good, just ready to go. Shout out to the rest of the members of the team. This evening, as usual, is expected to be quite informative and I hope also entertaining. So we are here again.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Finley?
Hey, sir.
How you going, Papa?
I deal with them.
You're there with them or you're there with us? Which one?
I deal with them. Good night to all of our listeners, all of our viewers. Good night to you. Good night to our I'm saying foremost, I don't say foremost, is our five most cultural icon.
Yes, indeed.
Dr. Livingston. And I am again looking forward to some interesting discussions. I have a feeling that tonight is going to be interesting. And just as to show that I am ready for all of the discussions that will emanate from this program tonight, put on a special shirt tonight.
Well,
that looks like a calypso shirt, no. That looks like a calypso shirt.
No. Back in the heyday of Gary, we used to call that shirt a disco shirt.
No. You only had two colors there. I mean, let me take off my glasses. Only two colors I seen, man. Disco is
no.
Livingston.
Our green, our black, our white, and our brown.
Yeah,
green, black, white, and brown. It's predominantly white as a map of also to reflect that Gary was a man at least. So I well thought of this thing.
All right. Let me. You want to get right?
Yeah, he looks so. He looks as though I was a golf.
Well, listen to me. Let me make it plain, early. I grew up a Garyite, and I have no apologies for that. All right. I grew up a Garyite, and I have no apologies whatsoever.
Well, Godfrey, the truth is that I don't even know what I grew up as. But what I know is that, and I will give you some stories. I grew up in a family that didn't like Gary at all.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't like Gary. So when I was a little boy at that time, but as little fellas and little children, you nurse this thing and them in the middle. So they say, if you want to know how an election will go in any particular year, the best poll to take is of school children. Because whatever school children say is what the parents are saying.
All right.
Most times.
Fair enough.
So why was the flip side of you? I grew up in a house what didn't much people.
Listen, say in a jewel house. Is it that you was a Garyite or you was a jewel? Simple as that.
Yeah?
You was a jewel.
I guess so.
It was either a Garyite or jewel. I mean, you had GNP, but GNP was. So is it a Garyite or jewel?
Or jewel.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm taking it.
All right, fair enough. So it's a good time to welcome our guest again this evening. She was with us last week, and we are very happy to welcome back with us Mrs. Gloria Payne Banfield. Mrs. Banfield, good evening, and we are pleased to have you back with us.
Good evening, Godfrey. I am very pleased to be with you.
Wonderful. That's great. And
how is it?
Say that again? Yes.
Can you hear me?
Very well. Very, very clear. Very, very, very clear. Very clear.
Good.
Wonderful indeed. So last week we started our discussion on the rise to prominence of the late Dr. Eric Matthew Gary. We got up to about Expo 69. And there are those who feel that it was around that time things started to change in Grenada as it relates to Mr. Gary's popularity. But just before we get to that, I want to just go back a bit because there's something I want to share with you. And Scholar might stretch him out, but that's all right. I'm going to share it anyway. So let's just take a listen to this, and then we are going to start our discussion this evening. So folks, here we go.
Kindly greasy pole, and we don't dance round the maypole.
OUI.com. Sale. All the outlets, hotspot outlets. You're going to go to the Carnage, the Grenville, or the Sutter's hotspot, and you get sales and deals on all items. You can get these on potato, you can get these on saltfish, onion, garlic, mackerel, toilet paper, and we even have the currants and the raisin at $10 per pound, lowest price island-wide. So people just come down or go up or go across, but just make sure and go to hotspots.
Communal, we are adapting to meet the changing needs of our shareholders and members. Times are changing, and with the changing times comes a whole new way.
Raise it high up the ladder. Let we set it on.
Okay, so I'm cutting it there because there is something quite significant, and the reason why I played that, because a lot of the things that was said in that discussion, and that was Mr. Teddy Victor. He was one of the founders of the new Jewel movement. And a lot of things he said was consistent to what we discussed last week. And so to put all of this into perspective, one of the questions that was asked was, after Eric Gary did all of these things, championed the cause of poor people, what gave rise, or what were the reasons why, I would say, a significant percentage of Grenadians felt that Eric Gary should go? And I want to pose that question first to Mrs. Banfield. What caused the demise of Eric Gary?
Okay, it's 1970, and the Black Power movement is raging in Trinidad. Those were the messages we got from our sister island. Black Power was going to take over the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And the saying that when your neighbor's house on fire, wet yours. You know that saying?
Uh-huh.
So I suspect that Gary took him front to wet his house. And that is where whenever you find people are threatened, he gets on the, what you call it, the offensive. So he got on the offensive, and then we had, what you call it, night police and night ambush and whatever else happened, but there were stories of people being beaten, young people being beaten, and that kind of thing. And that was an attempt to quell any ideas that there might have been, I suspect, that we could have a Black Power movement here too. So that is what happened. When a leader is in power and he is threatened, because he was threatened, not only by the news of the Black Power movement in Trinidad, but he was also threatened. I think that was around the time where we had the Lassages trial of Lord Brownlow.
Mm-hmm.
So his reaction was what I would consider perhaps irrational. And as a result, he went down in the popularity charts.
Mm-hmm. What about the economic situation in the country at that time? How was it?
There was nothing untoward. I mean, nutmeg and cocoa were booming and all that. I don't know that the economic conditions were lagging or slow. I think it was certain things were done in the country to get that feeling of unrest and unease, and you know, something had to be done to get rid of this leader.
Mm-hmm.
That was created all this unrest and unease. And on the other hand, the leader was saying, there is no need for all of this nonsense that is going on. You try to follow the Trinidadians. But we have a country that is going to be independent soon. And as soon as he started talking about independence, that was again very unpopular among certain people. Now, one doesn't understand this thing if one looks back at the whole scenario where Gary came from. And don't fool your head. Grenada was riddled with class structure. stratification. You had people who felt that Gary was a black boy, came from the country, didn't go to the GVSS, and should not be talking about leading Grenada into independence. So there was that class of people. And then there were others who felt that Gary should be given a chance to lead Grenada into independence. After all, look at what happened with the Squandermania issue. A lot of people disappointed the Squandermania issue. The other side, the GNP side, were the urban, I would say, what you call upper class and planter class, GNP. And they had tried to put him down, and they promised unitary statehood, and it never happened. So who is credible? And so that was the argument, I would say. And it all boils down to the fact that they didn't want independence under Gary. But I've been doing some research, and I understand they said they didn't want independence under Blaze either. And especially the New Jewel movement people felt that Blaze was a dead horse. They didn't want independence under him either. So basically, did they want independence? And when you look at the information that was, when you think of it seriously, the demise of the Federation brought about the Little Eight, and the Little Eight didn't stay together because Barbados went up, and when Barbados went up, you had the OECS, and then Gary decided he wanted independence. And I think it was like a domino effect. 1, 2, 3, and all of the chain, everybody wanted independence.
All right. I wanna get the other guys involved. Livingston, let me come to you. You heard a bit of the interview with Teddy Hunter, and of course you just heard what Mrs. Banfield said as it relates to the rise of the Black Power movement, and Gary wasn't too fond of that. What's your thought on it, and what have you picked up?
Godfrey, give me 1 minute to step back in time, yeah? Yes, so I just want to say, first I would want to put on the balance sheet the role Gary played, the goodwill that he brought to Grenada. And then I would go definitely to what I believe caused the revolution and pick it up on what some of Ms. Banfield actually said, which I have here, I believe. So let me say, from all this, Gary challenged the colonial government. He fought for trade union rights, he fought against racial prejudices, and that is what Ms. Banfield was talking about, the class system, and not only that, the urban class, not just the bourgeoisie class or the upper class, but also the urban people thought that it was an insult for them to be led by somebody so black and somebody from the rural part of the country. But Gary also just, in the early 60s, moved the daily wages from 50 cents to 80 cents. He revitalized agriculture industry. Women that never used to have boots and were dressed, Gary actually ensured that they walked with boots and pants for the first time. Walking hours were cut down. Workers that used to carry the load mile and a half, those distances was cut short. In 1968, the Land Acquisition Act allowed him to acquire some 30 other estates where he was able to dish out parcels of land, mostly everybody getting half an acre. The Providence Fund was introduced. Back pay for workers for the first time became a reality. Let us just look at the period 1960 to 1972 in particular, where Gary was able to boast that he brought Expo 69, a lady governor, Miss World, the National Zoo, agricultural scholarship to Guyana, agricultural officers attached to primary school, the Grossmith and his Baltimore Grossmith Commission increased salaries by 70% to government workers, emphasis was placed on tourism, and a New York chapter for the first time was established. Nursing aides and nursing assistants were introduced. Several all-parish medical centers were built. Science blocks for GBSs was built. There was a huge increase in scholarship and to secondary schools. School buses were introduced. Several sporting complexes, that means mainly playing fields, were then introduced in Grenada. So if we take that, then we look at what really then now come to cause the revolution after all this goodwill. A revolution can only be successful when there are one critical mass of purpose and consciousness among the population, meaning you must have a good group of persons that is extremely frustrated or extremely aware of the situation and is dissatisfied with the present situation. And the second conditionality, that it must be led by an equally decisive and trusted leadership. That was the condition, the two conditions actually, conditionalities that made the revolution. One of the external things had to do with the Black Power movement in Trinidad, as Mrs. Gloria Banfield said, but also in Grenada, as people look at Gary, for a matter of fact, and she did mention it, Gary said when the house is on fire, that way it was. The civil rights movements in America, the freedom struggle in the African continent, and sometimes we start to negate that one, the rise of the left-wing movement in the Caribbean that actually had some persons from Grenada just returning home. And because they were returning home, they felt that they had the answers to all the problems that we had, and it was them now and their entitlement to take Grenada to the new level. So Gary now doing all that and then being challenged by this new group, because let us take it, MAP was actually founded in 1967. In 1969. By 1973, MAP had joined on with Jewel, with the Teddy Victor and the white man from guys from St. David's, in order to form the new Jewel movement. And that came not during the last suggest activity, but after the last suggest activity. And so the left wing, immediately when New Jewel was formed, started forming cells, started having groups, and then you start now hearing names like Bernard Code coming to the fore instead of helping propel that kind of movement again. But the charismatic leader, the person that people saw, was Maurice Bishop.
Livingston, just hold it a bit. Just hold that point there. We need to take a break now. We're going to come back to you in just a moment. So stay with us, folks. We must take that break. We'll be back in just a moment.
Broadcasting from the top of
Get high making money moves with the NLA's new Aces High Scratch game with 4 chances to win. Beat the dealer's card to win the prize shown. Reveal an A symbol. And just like that, you are automatically a winner. Scratch away to win the top prize of $10,000. Win easy with Scratch. Must be 18 or older to play.
Good evening, viewers and listeners. This is the National Lotteries Authority's Daily Pick 3 evening draw. It is Friday, October 16th, 2020. I'm your draw hostess, Leslie Ann Johnson. Supervising the draw, Miss Priscilla Barry, representing PKF Accountants and Business Advisors. A quick reminder, as usual, there are 4 different bet types in this particular game from which you can choose. They're called in line, mix, pair, and backup. It pays to play Daily Pick 3. Let's see if you are a lucky one tonight. Good luck to you. And here we go, check your tickets. Our first number for tonight. 0, the second number. 1, the final number. The final number is 7. So just to recap for your benefit, our first number 0, the next number 1, the final is 7. Once again, 0, 1, and 7. If you are a lucky winner, congratulations to you. The Playway draw comes up next. We'll see you soon.
Tick, tock, 2, I win.
Feel like a big kid again when you play NLA's new scratch game, Tic-Tac-Toe. It's instant cash on the go. Reveal 3 X's or 3 O's in the same row, column, or diagonally, and win the prizes shown, or as much as $5,000. Win easy with Scratch. Must be 18 or older to play. Tic-Tac-Toe, please.
Give me a tic-tac-toe, please. Tic-tac-toe, please.
Hello once again. This is the National Lotteries Authority's Playway Evening Draw for today, Friday, October 16th, 2020. I'm your draw hostess, Leslie Ann Johnson. Supervising the draw, Miss Priscilla Barry, representing PKF accountants and business advisors. In this game, you can bet from $1 up to $10, or you can bet in increments on any number or any dream symbol of your choice, and being with a chance to win 24 times the amount you bet. That's $24 for every $1 that you spend. Value your dreams and win your way with Playway. Let's see if you are a lucky winner. Good luck to you. Once again, our Playway number for tonight is 3, the number 3. That represents house. Congratulations if you are tonight's lucky winner. Stay with us. The Daily Cash 4 is up next. We'll see you soon.
I'm a winner. You are winner. We are winners. Winners.
It's the big one. Grenada. Imagine winning $25,000 and up to 6 times by scratching just one little ticket. Get your triple cash scratch tickets for a chance to live your best life. Win easy with Scratch. For just $3, match any of your numbers to any of the winning numbers and win the prize shown for that number. Reveal a money back symbol and win the prize instantly. Triple cash scratch. In stores now. Must be 18 or older to play.
Cause I'm a winner. From the moment that I get up, I'm feeling right.
Alright, so we're back with you. This is the National Lotteries Authority's Daily Cash 4 Evening Draw. It is Friday, October 16th, 2020. I'm your draw hostess, Leslie Ann Johnson. With me once again, Miss Priscilla Barry, representing PKF accountants and business advisors. In this game, you can choose any number from 0 to 9 in any of the 11 bet types offered. The tickets cost as little as $1, except backup. That costs $2. More plays, bigger prizes. Let's play Daily Cash 4. Good luck to you. It's our first number. 6, second number. 0, the next number. 1, final number. The final number is 6. So just to recap for your benefit, our first number is 6, the next number 0, that's followed by 1. The final is 6. Once again, 6, 0, 1, and 6. So congratulations, of course, if you are a lucky winner tonight. Stay with us. The Lotto draw comes up at 9 o'clock. We're playing for $308,000. We'll see you soon.
Win more with the NLA's Daily Cash 4. Every day with more plays and bigger prizes to be won. It's a 4-digit game with all the bet types you already know and much, much more. From 0000 to 9999. Choose your 4 numbers and place your bet from 11 different bet types. Choose from inline, 4 different mixes, first 3, last 3, and 4 different backup options too. Best of all, it starts at just $1, except for backups, which starts at $2. Win as much as $5,000 with a $1 inline bet and as much as $6,200 in a $2 backup bet. Imagine $50,000 for a winning $10 inline bet. There's definitely more to win with the Daily Cash 4. More plays, bigger prizes, twice per day, Mondays to Saturdays. Must be 18 and over to participate. NLA, making your dreams come true while supporting sports, culture, and nation building.
Raise it high up the ladder. Let we set it on fire.
Welcome back, folks. It's OUI Culture, and just remember, we're also live on Facebook. That's the GBN Facebook page, or you can also log on to OUI Culture Grenada, and of course, the program is streamed live there. You can catch it, and of course, please like the page, and you can share the page as well. We want you to share the page, of course, so others can view and be part of this experience. All right. So you can also place your comments as well on the page, and of course we would share your comments with the rest of our listeners and viewers. All right. So we continue the discussion. We're talking about what brought about the demise of Gary, or the Gary losing power. Livingston, just before I come back to you, I want to just bring in Scholar here a bit to get his views on what we said so far. Scholar, your take on what you heard, one from Teddy Victor and also from Mrs. Banfield and Livingston.
Thank you very much, actually. Now, what is clear is that what Teddy Victor would have said and what Ms. Banfield would have said last week and a bit of this week, they are consistent, right, in terms of their stories. And then I think Livingston would have attempted really to put all of this into perspective as far as all of the great things that Gary would have done, give a whole shot list of those things. Now, one of the things that is clear, Godfrey, and I have listened to all sides of the fence. And one thing that is clear, sometimes even in the political arena at present, you have people who will tell you, keep it shall never do nothing. Good. They don't like keep it shall never do. But one thing that is clear, even the people who don't like Gary always said that Gary started off excellent. This is something that is always correct, right? I've never heard anybody say that Gary never do nothing more. So all of the expo and all of these things. In fact, I was speaking to a gentleman only this week. He is one who had some personal dealings to me with Gary. He tells stories of his battles really with Gary in the 70s. But on top of all of this, he punctuated all that he's saying by saying that Gary did a lot of good things. So I think we're clear on that, and the short list that Livingston would have given to sort of add flesh to the bones and icing on the cake of what the contribution by Mrs. Payne Banfield last week is well in order. Now, what I heard though from Teddy, right? When he was asked about the demise of Gary, he went to explain and what caused it. He, to me, would have explained what caused the demise without really saying exactly. He stopped short of saying exactly what it is. So and it's fair game. We must discuss the philosophical standpoint, from a philosophical standpoint, what caused Gary to react and to change the way that we've heard stories that he changed, and Ms. Banfield sort of put it into perspective. But we've also heard stories of the change, and I've always heard, right, from a long time about the whole thing of the Black Power movement and what Livingston would have said about the bright fellas coming back and kind of stamping the authority, if you want to call it that, and Gary feeling threatened by the fact that these bright fellas coming back and they talking, because remember Gary was a flowery kind of fella, flowery in his speech and so on. And suddenly you had these fellas that come back and they talking flowery and they so, and I remember I think it was William Joseph who always says that, he always makes this remark that Gary would have said that they come back hot and sweaty, preaching black power. You know, so this was something that Gary felt threatened by. No. What we need, I think, though, to encapsulate, and this is what I'm not getting, is the stories of the excesses, or what we say he did when, quote unquote, changed, right? So those are the things I think we have to delve into. And I noted with interest that Miss Payne Banfield, and she may want to take me up on this, but I noted with interest that she, in explanation for that, she said that we heard stories of thing at night and so on. So it was never decisive. You know, like how she speaks authoritatively about the expo and the whatnot, but she heard stories. So those were things she didn't know.
Well, let me come in here. Let me come in here and play devil's advocate. The fact that we have not heard anything decisive as to what the excesses were. My question is, and it's a question, could it be that there really wasn't excesses?
Well, Godfrey,
it's a question. It's a question.
Yes, a good question. And let me say that in everything else, and we're living in Grenada, with everything else, you know Grenada, anytime you hear anything, it might be a stretch, but you have something there. I mean, even up to now, we have something there. And I believe that in a lot of cases, Gary, there was some false notoriety. I believe that. But I believe that there were some things. Because I mean, there are things you have to see. And probably Miss Payne Banfield, Mrs. Payne Banfield, and probably call us, because I would like to hear from the public as well. And probably Miss Payne Banfield could put it into perspective, because we heard all kind of things. Gary was a man. Gary, you heard all sorts of things.
So Godfrey.
Hold on, Livingston. Hold on.
Yeah, hold on, Livingston. Hold on. Let me finish. Because I want to bring back Miss Banfield on it, yeah.
Right? But, Livingston, you're speaking still? Man, wait,
you tell me hush up.
Right, okay. But, if you okay, now, my old man, for example, who's alive and well, he was giving me a story, for example, that he was not a supporter of Gary. But he was not a supporter of Gary because he fundamentally disagreed with anything Gary did or any of his principles. He couldn't vote for Gary because the person who was running against the GLP candidate in his area, that person was a very good friend of his. Was very, this person, he was able to go into that person's hand and take things and so on. So they had a very good relationship. And because of that, he just couldn't vote for GLP. But he said that the GLP people, they did not take it too kindly. And so there was this whole thing of the secret police. And the secret police had a meeting, and they said that they have to come to your house to listen in the night to hear what your wife say, right? But one of them, and all of them is good friends, but one of them couldn't take it, his stomach, he right the chest. So you come and tell him, but look what we just had a meeting and look what we planned. So he said, they lie down here and your wife lie down in the night day. You don't even snow that night. Nothing to say the quiet as, and these are stories that you hear. So, Godfrey, I believe that there was something there, And of course, with all of that, there would be some false notoriety.
Right. I want to go back to Mrs. Banfield. So, Mrs. Banfield, we're going to put you to task now. We're taking you to task. There were many stories. We heard about, as Scholar mentioned, we heard quite a few of them. Then we started hearing about people being beaten by the circuit police and the Mongoose gang. I also heard, and that one was very new to me, that there was another group which was not so as outgoing probably as the Mongoose gang, a group called the Dog. Now I heard it for the first time. Can you share some light there? Tell us a little bit about some of these activities.
Well, I can't tell you about these activities because I was not part of those activities. Let's put it this way. The Mongoose gang, of course, they were named the Mongoose gang by Alistair Hughes, a journalist, and he has since passed on. But I understand that these were people who were getting the eradication of mongoose through the Public Health Division of the Ministry of Health. And because a few of them worked for that project, he called them the Mongoose Gang. So that's where they got their names from. They were supposed to be badgons, beat up people, and so on. I never seen anybody that they beat up. But I know one day I was stopped on the road from was by whom I think was part of the Mongoose Gang. And when I asked them, well, what they stopped me for? And they look at me and they look at who was in the car, and my mother was in the car actually. And then they say, okay, fella, let's go. And I feel they just used to harass people. I don't know. The stories I heard were similar to my experience, but I would say that there were certain stories that were stories. You know what I mean? In short, they were concocted. There was a certain gentleman called Irie Bishop. You ever heard that name?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the usual paper came out every week. And you heard so many days since Irie Bishop missing. Didn't you? You read that.
Uh-huh.
So many days. Bam, the revolution came. 13th March. And Irie Bishop stopped missing. You get the point? In short, there was never an inquiry why Irie Bishop was missing. By the same people who were saying so many days he missed it.
So let me ask, do you believe at the time, and as Livingston made a reference to those young fellas who came back from university and felt they had it going on, and this little man from Dunfermline can't lead them, do you think they were involved in activities that was designed to make Eric Gary look bad so they can have a motive to...
Yes, yes, I believe they were engaged in activities that were designed to make him look really bad, and he fell for it actually.
Mm-hmm.
He fell right in the hands because he reacted.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
He reacted, and his reaction was to bring on night ambush squad and secret police and all that. So, if he had just stayed the course and just said, okay, so this is what you're saying, prove it. Or, take high ground. But instead, he goes on his night ambush people, and I didn't never ambush me. So I said, I can't tell you. That is a fact.
All right.
But
yeah. Scholar, quickly, I have one for you. No, before I do that, let me welcome Reese. She was having some internet issues. She's with us. Reese, welcome. We're happy to have you.
Good night, everyone. It's been hard trying to get through to the program. I'm just happy that I'm finally in.
Right. I saw you. You were looking very attentive. Were you checking out some of the Facebook comments?
Yes, I was actually just going through them, actually sharing the program before, and yes, there's quite a number of comments. For example, from Hannah Plenty, she said, thought the Mongoose gang started off with guys that was setting trap to hold mongoose because there were a fluctuation of mongoose hair. So, you know, and you probably would hear children say that today because when they hear about mongoose gang, they're thinking, well, okay, we're looking for mongoose, not necessarily what it was back then. Jose Phillips said, scholar, I thought people from Shanty used to sing, we go follow Uncle Gary, we vote in the star, we kick in the car on election day. So those are some of the comments that I've seen so far. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep checking and I'll let you know when we have some comments that we need to share.
All right, Livingston, I want to come back to you. Now, you have just about 3 minutes because we have to take another break. So let me come to you quickly to finish what you started earlier.
Yeah, what I was saying that within 4 years as Premier, Gary went to 7 police commissioners. So that is to tell you what he was doing. And Gary announced that he's recruiting the toughest, roughest, roughneck in town. And these were the people that actually became the Mongoose gang that were then sworn in as rural constables. So Gary's intention was clear to quell that new group of persons that felt that he was not deserving to be. And I said it was probably had a lot to do with class, but it also had to do with those persons that coming back and felt they were brighter than and more entitled to. But Gary's forces, those guys and them that was under him, started to have a reign of terror in Grenada. And in April the 9th example, 1973, a young man in Grenville, Jeremiah Richardson, was shot point blank just because usually when the police have guys run and he just stood up and they came out from the car, they stopped and they just shot him. He died. That led to some demonstration. The demonstration went on the airport. Pearls Airport at that time, they closed the airport for 2 days. Now the police decided they are going to shut down, flush out the demonstrators where they were occupying the airport. And that incident, 12 persons got shot, one of them being Teddy Victor's brother. Right? It was on that same event that when Alistair Hughes, as just mentioned, one of the most probably renowned journalists, he was cuffed and slapped and, you know, pushed around. So again, the revolution started using all that in a way to show the brutality and the harassment that was taking place. By November 18, 1973, a meeting that was scheduled in Grenville by some of the high echelons of the NGM was severely beaten. And they were supervised, well, the police, the troops were supervised by no other than Innocent Belma. Yeah. By just a couple months after, on
Livingston, stick a pin there. I can't let you get away with that one. Now, you said that the troops were supervised by Innocent Belma. And the people who were bitten there, we're talking about people like Maurice Bishop, Kenrick Radix, Unison Whiteman, others?
Yes, yes.
So my question to you, before we go to the break, if that was so, and they were supervised by Innocent Belma, how come that Kenrick Radix was very, very vocal in announcing to the nation that, let me say, as I would say today, was it not for Innocent Belma, I will not be alive today. Together himself, Maurice Bishop and others. Is there a contradiction, Huline?
No, it's not a contradiction because Belma was responsible for the Eastern Division and the violence took place in Grenville. But when
But Belma, excuse me, Belma was supposed to make sure that doesn't happen. So he just took them up and put them in the cell. And took them up from the beating they were getting. But that, you know.
I think Belma actually just stopped the beating, but I mean, that was the normal practice that was taking place by some of the Mongoose here. I mean, okay, Godfrey, I just want to make a joke because the Mongoose gang and those guys used to just randomly meet people on the street and will give you a 2 slap, give you a few slap here and there. In the revolution, that multiplied by tenfold, but I just want to see this thing happen. And if I was just 1 more minute, I would say Rupert Bishop, again, at the 3-4 months after in the town of St. George this time, you had a bloody Monday, where Rupert Bishop, the father of Maurice Bishop, was actually shot when the group of 22 was holding a demonstration. And there is a real nice classical piece that took place where a truck with empty bottles was strategically placed because they knew the demonstration was going to take place. I mean, and bottles when baton, rifles, that's where the scatter the crowd. But I want to come home a little.
We have to stop you because we must take that break now. We got strict instructions. So let's take that break and we're coming back to you in a moment. Stay with us, folks. We'll be back in just a moment.
Need a home, car, education, dream vacation? The National Lotteries Authority's Lotto Jackpot is $308,000. Play today for chances at a more satisfying life. Lotto. Play and win a lot of money.
Good evening, everyone. This is the National Lotteries Authority's Lotto Draw number 3128 for today, Friday, October 16th, 2020. I'm your draw hostess, Leslie Ann Johnson. Supervising the draw tonight, Ms. Priscilla Barry, representing PKF Accountants and the Business Advisors. So we're playing for $308,000 tonight. But of course, before we select our 5 winning numbers, we'll select the free ticket letter. Alright, so our free ticket letter is I as in ink. Check to see if it matches that on your ticket. If it does, of course, you can claim your free ticket at your outlet of purchase. So we'll now select tonight's 5 winning numbers for $308,000. Good luck to you. Check your tickets. Our first number for tonight. That number is 26. Second number. 20, tonight's third number. 9, fourth number. 8, the fifth and final number. That number is 13. All right, so let's just recap for your benefit. We'll start with the free ticket letter. That is I as in ink. And the 5 winning numbers for $308,000 are 26, 26, 20, 20, 9, 09, 8, 08, and 13, 13. So, of course, congratulations if you are tonight's lucky winner. Continue supporting the National Lotteries Authority. Have a great night.
Tick, tock, toe. I win.
Feel like a big kid again when you play NLA's new scratch game, Tic-Tac-Toe. It's instant cash on the go. Reveal 3 X's or 3 O's in the same row, column, or diagonally, and win the prizes shown, or as much as $5,000. Win easy with Scratch. Must be 18 or older to play. Tic-Tac-Toe, please.
Give me a tic-tac-toe, please. Tic-tac-toe, please.
Good evening, viewers. Welcome to tonight's Super 6 draw for today, Friday, the 16th of October, 2020. I am Joselle Cooper. Super 6 is a multi-jurisdictional game owned by Winlot Inc. and is played within the islands of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dominica, Grenada, and St. Lucia. Tonight's jackpot is $240,000. We will now select your free ticket letter. Good luck. Letter is G. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back with tonight's winning numbers.
More jackpot money, more reasons to play this game. More money for way. Super 6 a bigger jackpot game.
Now you love Super 6 even more. With more money.
To the jackpot galore. Play more. Win more. Have more fun.
With more jackpot money.
Super 6
is my number one.
With the new and improved Super 6 game, the jackpot keep growing and growing.
I'm growing.
More jackpot money, more reasons to play this game. More money for way. Super 6, a bigger jackpot game. Super 6, bigger jackpots, more chances to win.
Welcome back. Now for the winning numbers. Good luck. The first number is 12. The second number is 26. The third number is 21. The fourth number is 2. The fifth number is 7. And the sixth number is 20. Once more, the winning numbers are 12, 26, 21, 2, 7, 20. And the free ticket letter is G. Tonight's winning numbers were drawn under the supervision of an auditor from BDO. Please contact your relevant Central Lottery office for further information on the payment of prizes. Thanks for playing, and remember, with Super 6 there are bigger jackpots and more chances to win. Join us on Tuesday, the 20th of October 2020 for our next draw. Until next time, I am Joselle Cooper wishing you a pleasant evening.
Raise it high up the ladder. Let we set it on fire.
Welcome back, folks. It's OUI Culture, and just to remind you, it comes to you compliments BOP insecticide spray, and of course it's distributed by Hubbard's agency. We're discussing the events that led to the demise of Eric Gary, and guys, I want to just quickly go to our telephone. The phone has been going. I want to take a quick call, and I'm gonna come back to Livingston for a bit. So let's go to the telephone. OUI Culture, good evening.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yeah, caller, you have 2 minutes quickly to make your contribution.
I believe in the truth, and the truth is, I am 62 years of age, and I born and bred and grew up in St. George's. And just as we praising Uncle Gary or Mr. Gary about the good he done, we have to admit he allowed a lot of bad to happen in Grenada that causes his demise. And we must speak the truth. You understand? Because at the end of the day, if it was Dr. Keith Mitchell had done quarter of what he had done, probably would have been in jail today. So if he's speaking, speak the truth, because there's a lot I know personally, and I can talk about that happened that Uncle Gary caused or did that created his demise. But Ms. Banfield and the rest of them must speak the truth, because he did a lot of wrong that caused his demise. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, caller. Livingston, let me come back to you quickly before I go to Mrs. Banfield.
Yeah, Godfrey, yes, quickly. But I cannot help but listen to the caller, and I just wish the caller would have said what is his truth. Because a lot of propaganda.
Yeah.
Anyway, anyway, but let me just deal with I want to go to a local issue, and that had to do with Tivoli. Now, the makeup, and I don't know if that was peculiar to most places in Grenada, but I believe it was so. Our parents were Garyites, and some of the young people were then radicalized or socialized later on to be part of the NJM, the New movement, by coming by the 77, 70 era. And I had a young brother just after, after one day we were prepared to go for lessons, and there was a famous policeman called Django, in Tivoli, based in Tivoli station, and he met my brother, sat down by the road, and he said, you know, time to go home. And my brother said, well, no, after 2, why am I going home? You can't tell me to go home. And that ended up in a small skirmish. And I'm just saying that is the kind of pattern that was happening. I also witnessed in Tivoli, which was a very highly politicized area, that a police ran down one Kennedy Buddha, that actually grazed his neck. And this policeman was living just right in Carrie here. And I mean, just by the skin of his teeth, he is that cutlass going through him. Again, I have a bigger brother, Rodney Nelson, that was shot. Just hanging out one day, the police car passed. We stopped them just after 9 one night. They were hanging out by Miss Ram in the place. And when they saw the police, they started to run. The police opened the door, fire bullets. My brother got shot in the hand. And these were some of the many incidents. I saw innocent Ben McCain, they came with a truck load of GBC, and I don't know if it was Mongo's gang guys at the time, but they came in Tivoli, and I mean, several guys just scattered. This was very, very peculiar to what was taking place in Tivoli. That was very peculiar to what was happening in several places throughout Grenada, in that the Mongols indiscriminately would meet young men that had no relationship with any political doing, and they would move them, give them battle above the head, etc. So I think because they were not controlled, because there was not enough checks and balance for their activities, it kind of led to the radicalization of the population. And a lot of youths now that did not want to get involved got involved and started to have this anti-Gary sentiment being developed because of the work of these youth.
Right. You mentioned the Tivoli incident, and I'm very familiar with them, and it is true. But there's also something that I want to go back to, because Miss Banfield made a point earlier as it relates to the rise of the Black Power, and you also, Livingston, alluded to the fact that those young bright fellas who came back felt that Gary shouldn't rule. I don't know if you are aware, but Maurice Bishop and some of the others, they used to meet regularly in Miss Hilda Rosso kitchen with some of the fellas from Tivoli.
Well, no, the buggy got free.
No. The buggy was after. I'm telling you, I lived just above because I used to bring ice for them. When they tossed inside Miss Hilda Rosso kitchen, I used to bring ice for them. Westmost used to live there. All right. So you see, there are a lot of things. There are a lot of things that has happened over the years, and we need to put them into perspective because they're all part of our history. Now, it is not right for police to just run down people and shoot them. Definitely not. And a lot of these things happen, and they're very personal to me. A lot of times I don't want to speak of them because I get a little on the other side. But we need to put all of it into perspective. And some things happened. As Teddy Victor said, we sometimes need to look at what causes some reaction. So
one thing, let us all be clear. The guys at the NGM were not very much interested in the democratic process. Their plan was to have a revolution. So when they came in Tivoli, and they went to other areas organizing political cells, they aimed, for a matter of fact, before Bishop and them came to Grenada, they had met in a place called Rat Island. And they met there with the whole intention of having revolutions throughout the Caribbean. So the aim was to have a revolution. I mean, the NJM had moved from no seats in Parliament and joined with the alliance, where Bishop was the leader of that alliance, to have 6 seats in Parliament.
But remember, Livingston, and I don't want us to go back and forth, but remember, out of the 6 seats, 2 belonged to the GNP and 1 the Christian Democratic Labour Party. Also bear in mind that the margin of victory in the 76 election was extremely small. So, but that's a different story. But I want us to go back to Mrs. Banfield to make reference to some of the things that we discussed. Mrs. Banfield, as it relates to, we spoke earlier about some of the beatings and all of that. Tell us what you can recall about some of these things. And was in fact was Gary aware of all of the things that happened?
I wouldn't do that. But let me say this. I would like to bring this discussion back to a cultural level. Because people have met me and said they heard the program is so more like history rather than we culture. And I just like to bring it back to a cultural level when I refer to a song that was chanted by the Shotneys just around the time when Belma was doing his thing in Grenville. And it went like, I cannot sing in the song, but it went like this. Belma, Belma, who will stand up with you Monday morning? You get the picture? Carnival Monday morning. Somebody who had to stand up with Belma. That is a message. And that's a cultural thing.
Ms. Banfield, Godfrey, as Ms. Banfield was saying on the culture, I also had to note that in terms of the leaders that has acquired the leadership in this country, there was no one else that were able to borrow the drums, promote the traditional art forms of Grenada. I mean, expos are classic, but apart from that, really going down and met what I consider those persons and them that were the real cultural practitioners and promoting it in a big way. So it was no wonder because already mentioned about Obia. And it's because Gary was so entwined, so much involved in the culture of our people, that he was labeled as being an Obia man, mainly. I mean, I know some other people are spread that.
Mrs. Banfield, let me bring in Scholar a bit. Scholar, let me get your thoughts. You're looking lonely out there.
Well, I still Livingston get something that he seems to be authority on. So I'm listening, I'm learning. I think what is missed here, and we're speaking about what caused 1979. And Livingston made the point that the Jewel had no interest in the democratic process. But, and this is not because Livingston seems well researched, I must admit. But research takes on different dimensions, right? And so my research also says to me that there was a school of thought that and this is one of the things that I've not heard for the night. There was a school of thought that the 1976 election, that Gary parodied the election. In other words, a thief. And the Jewel fellas were of the opinion that this would have been the modus operandi going forward. They couldn't win. Now, you speak about winning by 2 seats and by 2 votes and 1 vote and whatever. But there was that school of thought also which dangled in the air during that time. I'm sure that you would have heard about it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that in a way encapsulates what probably Livingston is referring to. I do not believe that initially they were not interested in the democratic process. I don't believe that for 1 minute, and I believe that somehow they felt that the democratic process just would not have worked for them, that it would not have ascended. We see a lot of things that has happened, and I don't think anyone can say or will say that Gary, the question that you asked Ms. Banfield, that Gary knew of everything that was happening. But just as how Sita Hall would have taken issue with me when I sang Boom Boom, because he said that he didn't know about the pan thing. Let me tell you something. When you are the leader, yeah, whether you like it or not, you have to take responsibility. Whether you know, whether you don't know, you have to take responsibility. So Gary had to take responsibility for whatever the Mongols and the GVC and the secret police and all that did. Gary had to take responsibility for it. Point out.
I totally agree with you, Scholar. I am in total agreement. Let me bring in Reese here. Reese's been listening. You had quite a bit. What's your take on all of what you've been hearing so far?
I'm what they call the youngin inside of here. So, I'm learning quite a lot. But yes, I agree with Scholar when he speak about the NJM as opposed to what Livingston was saying. Maybe based on what was portrayed, it appears as if like they were not interested in the democratic process. But I want to believe that these gentlemen and them, it was a matter of not trusting the system and needing to make a bold step to be able to get things back into a balance. That is the impression that I get about it. But when it comes to Gary, though, growing up, there was a lot of things that you heard about him that were not very nice. It was almost ghetto-like, for want of a better description. But what stands out most for me is that he led us to independence. And that, to me, is a big deal. We may argue that we are not truly independent, and I would concur with a lot of things where that is concerned, since we're very royal still. But he still did that leg of it, and I do appreciate what I know about, his involvement in that. I appreciate that a lot. But, just to throw out something here, growing up, you heard a lot about when queens participated in Queen Show, whoever won, they became his, or you hear your grandparents talking about things like, Gary taught me this too, Gary, I get to know this, and, we're talking about clothing and stuff like that now. So I would like to hear what Ms. Banfield have to say. I mean, did you hear about these things? Are these new to you, or,
Okay, just before we go back to Ms. Banfield, let's go to the telephone. OUI Culture, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, you have 2 minutes. Quickly, caller. Go ahead.
Yes. I believe what started that whole thing is that when these people came back, Gary knew their intention. And he would have none of it because they wanted to rule from the time they came back. And concerning that thing about the revolution, I remember they had a meeting in Guav. I didn't know what revolution means, but they were saying they're going to have a revolution. And I heard they said that the cauldron is boiling and they're going to have a revolution. And they even make fun of a man called Mr. Ducky and tell him they're going to make him the mayor because he was a bad Gary, right? Yes, that's it.
Thank you very much indeed, caller. Hold on, Livingston, hold on. We need to get to Mrs. Banfield. Mrs. Banfield, Reese wanted to get some thoughts from you as it relates to some of the things that was bandied about Eric Gary, whether some of them were true or not.
Well, again, I had to say that I cannot vouch for the veracity of Mr. Gary's behavior. But I could say that the rumors were right there. Some of the rumors most likely were created by his political opponents, and other of the rumors would have been generated, I would say, among people who were vying for his attention. I mean, there's some interesting anecdotes about Mr. Gary in when he's playing cricket. Like he said to the umpire, "You like your job?" Because he put him out. And those stories, could be circulated and added to. But the fact remains is that he was a colorful character. And I know that he said often, the difficult we do right away, the impossible takes a little time. I heard him say that. So what I know, what I hear about somebody talk about truth. Truth is relative. to who's talking about truth.
Miss Banfield, did he have the famous diary? The famous diary.
I don't. I never saw it. I never saw it.
What about the album?
And a matter of fact, I can tell you, Morris Bishop told me that the so-called album did not exist. Did not exist. He told me that in front of witnesses.
I think a lot of people knows that. I think a lot of people know that. But and you see, this is the thing. This is why I asked the question earlier, because in every and Scholar did respond well. In everything, every leader may not be aware of all that happens, because supporters have a way of just doing what they want, because they figure, well, look, and it has happened. I mean, look, from time immemorial. It is happening now. It happened before. It is going to continue to happen, you know. But as Scholar rightly said, as a leader, you must take responsibility. And I definitely have to agree with that. Let's take another call quickly. We Culture, good evening. Hello.
Good night, good night.
Yes, 2 minutes, please, Scholar, quickly. 2 minutes, quickly.
Yes. Yeah, I just want to fill in the blanks. You all missed out on the taking away of the land for the landless. And this upset a lot of the opposition leaders, and some of the people became opposition to Gary because he took away their lands. And another thing I want to say is that many of the people in the opposition, he tried to befriend them so that he could use them for his own benefit. And because they were not yielding to him, he made a lot of mischief on them. Imagine a man like Roy Donald lost his life after he's been the manager of 3 estates, on numerous occasions sent the police to his house and to search for his guns, to ensure that he did not have a gun. And the night of Roy Donald's death, he didn't have a gun to defend himself. Remember, he was killed by a man named Charles. So he lost his life because of Gary, because if Charles knew he had a gun, he would not have taken that chance with him. So Gary did a lot of mischievous things to people, and remember, some of the children of these same landowners might have been the same ones that came out from overseas and decided to take revenge. And I'm not saying that is what happened, but it could be some of these things that were happening that made them come together to decide to deal with Gary. Have a good night.
Thank you very much indeed, caller. Thanks a lot. All right, our telephone number 435-2041. Let's take another call. We Culture, good evening. Hello. Good evening. Okay, well, we seem to don't have anyone there. Livingston, I wanted to take you up on something, because we have someone who sent a question, and in fact I intended to ask you that. The question is, Livingston, okay, Mr. Nelson, can you confirm how Rupert died? That's Rupert Bishop. Also, who killed him, or who or which group of people was responsible for his death?
Well, the police are the same. They mobilized around 500 policemen. From matter of fact, it was stated that on the evening before the demonstration, Gary called them up at his residence and basically, gave a presentation. And around 500 of them were mobilized. So when the group of 22 started demonstrating and the police started firing, Rupert Bishop in his city tried to put his body to shield one of the nurses. And in the process, he got shot. I do not know the name of the person that actually did. That was who actually identified.
But let me ask. From what I have heard as it relates to that, there was gunfire from both sides. I've also heard that the bullet, and I don't know, the bullet that killed Rupert Bishop was from the other side. But you see, the thing is, do we have, you see, I think sometimes in cases like that, especially when we have someone's life involved, I think we need to be mindful and be able to have some evidence as to what actually happened, because I've gotten two sides of this story. We've heard that of course, the NJM has paraded with the fact that Rupert Bishop was killed by Gary's people. I've also heard, as I said, the bullet that killed him was from the other side. But I have never seen any conclusive evidence as to which group or who actually killed Rupert Bishop.
Well, I think most of the reading I did, and there's about tricky where they pointed out that it was done by Gary's side. So I would not hold my breath on that, but that is what I think.
Okay.
So I hope I answered some questions.
Right, yeah. Risi, you had some Facebook comments that you want to share with us?
Yes, there's two in particular. Petal Duncan, she's suggesting that we read a report of the Duffus Commission of Inquiry to understand some of the actions of Gary and the GULP. And there's also Jose Philip. He said, as a young person living in Sotez, we welcome the overthrow of Gary because the people of Sotez suffered a lot under the hands of Montage Stedman Noble. Malcolm Pope and others, I remember, one time, they came to Sotez and there was no one in the streets, and they took out their anger on the dogs in the streets. So those are two comments that I thought, well, Jose Philip also said, I remember a lady was hit with a conch shell in her head and a man's nose was slapped in Lotong Sotez. So this is just feedback as to some of the things that people are holding Sir Eric Gary responsible for.
So Godfrey, just to comment.
Just before you go, someone posted another comment. It says Rupert Bishop was killed by his own people. Read the Duffus report. That's another social media comment.
The first report did not mention about that incident. The first report was mainly centered around the incident in Banfield. And one of the recommendations was that Belma should not be holding any public office. Innocent Belma had to resign from the police. But the other thing that happened, the flip side, while he resigned from the police, he ran for office, for parliamentary office in the next following year, and actually won his seat.
By a landslide.
And became the Minister of Agriculture. There were several recommendations. I can, but that also that the secret police should be disbanded. So the secret police lasted from 1973 to 1974. So after the incident in Grenville, it was disbanded. And while people must say that, although the group of 22 demonstrated, it was the government at the time that suggested that they have the commission of inquiry, not the group of 22. For a matter of fact, the leading opposition then was the NGM. And the NGM report was that Gary should report in 14 days, he should resign his position, and nothing about the commission of inquiry. So it was the government that suggested the commission of inquiry. And commission of inquiry gives some clear instructions. And as I say, two of them, that the secret police should be disbanded and Belma should not be served in any public position. I mean, I could...
And then, as a matter of fact, the day after Belma was made the Minister of Agriculture, he was murdered in Bambuba.
The next day?
Yeah.
I thought shortly after, I didn't know it was the next day.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it was January 4th, 1978.
But Godfrey, we grew up in Tivoli, and I can tell you, I knew of the involvement, and when I made the statement earlier, I knew of the involvement of people from the Sandinistas coming to Grenada. And I know of the formation by the NGM of what you call the NLA, that will send persons in Guyana and places like Iwatli, Ruta, and about the whole arms thing with people like Chester, Humphrey, and Waterley. It was an attempt to execute a revolution. So the intention of the NGM was very clear. Teddy Victor also his book.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that.
So the idea of when I mentioned about it was not the democratic process within election was just a front, but it was very clear.
Yeah, but Livingston, you must qualify what you're saying. It might have been the intention, but when was that intention given birth?
The intention was given birth when they formed the NLA.
When the NGN was formed?
1974, way before the 1976 election. So it was not after
when the intention was given birth. So,
yes.
So there's no veracity to the claim. You're saying that there's no veracity to the claim that there was that feeling that, according to Rishi, that they did not trust the democratic process?
Oh yeah, I believe that too. I believe they said that. But again, I believe, one of the very powerful medium that the NGM had was a propaganda arm. And I wouldn't doubt that there was some meddling in the democratic process. But again, from several indications, he was a man that had to fight tooth and nail in order to ensure that the universal suffrage was spread out right through. Simply because at some time, persons that were unable to write or were unable to make eligible X's, etc., were denied that right to vote. So his people that were more disenfranchised than anything else. So I wouldn't doubt anything happens, but I'm just saying based on some of the information I met up, that this whole idea of trying to have a revolution way before the 76 election was present. And the whole idea with the gun peddling, and I'm not so sure about the gun peddling, but the formation of the NLA, the fact that people, they used to have guerrilla training here in Tivoli, and people from the Sandinistas coming in Sam's in Dunfermline to meet with some members of the NGM. The whole assembly in the buggy was real, and that was the intention.
And you see, yes, Scholar, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think you are making my point, because you speak of the dates, and the dates that you speak about with all the Sandinistas and the NLA and so on, after 76.
No, Scholar, it was before 76.
So the Sandinistas was before 76?
The Sandinistas was not in office at that time.
Yeah.
It was guerrilla forces. They came.
So the NLA was before 76?
Before 76.
It was what year?
To the best of my knowledge, it was around 74, 75.
Okay. Guys, let's go to the telephone and take a call. OUI Culture, good evening. Hello. All right, callers, you need to listen to us on your telephone. Don't listen to us on your radio or TV because you will not hear us properly. Let's try the telephone once again. OUI Culture, good evening. Hello. All right. So we continuing, folks. So a number of things happened, and we got to the point where Gary wanted to take Gloria to independence. He was met with a lot of opposition in some quarters. Mrs. Banfield made reference to that. Mrs. Banfield, why do you think that these people, the opportunity for Gloria to become an independent nation and start doing things for ourselves and to work and develop our country, why were some people opposed to that? Did they feel that Gary's intention was not genuine at the time?
Godfrey, the way you asked the question, you suggested that I would thought was the answer to that. I have no idea why they felt that way. The fact remains is that there was a lot of propaganda going on, okay? Because I suspect that the fellows in Trinidad were also linked up with those in Grenada. So they were trying to undermine, and that's how they did it. I looked on, very frankly, as an interested passerby because I had no vested interest in either one or the other. My vested interest was in Grenada. And if somebody was doing something to help Grenada, I would be on board with them. So I was very much pro-independence. I was part of the independence committee, part of the secretariat for independence. I was coordinator of the cultural activities for independence, the getting of the anthem, the competitions, different competitions, steel band, choirs, whatever, and the expression to me of Grenadianism, because to me that is what independence means. It means that I could proudly stand up and say, I am a Grenadian. It gives me that authority.
Okay, let's go back to the telephone again and see who's with us. OUI Culture, good evening. Hello. OUI Culture, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, 2 minutes, please, caller. Go ahead.
Yes, 2 minutes. I think I have some information that might be very important to you all, you know. Hello?
Yes, go ahead, please, caller. You need to listen. You need to listen to us on your telephone, please. Yes.
Yes, the NJM. The NJM, how it came into existence, it originated from MAP MAP. And I would like to discuss with you all something about this whole thing, because I don't know, there are not many people alive now who are perhaps foundation members of that and who could still tell you something. And I'm one of the few who are around, who started off with the boys with MAP, and then they became NGM and that sort of thing. And that would have a lot of bearing on what happened all in the Bloody Sunday, the Bloody Monday, and all those things coming up too. So I would like to discuss with you all, but I won't have enough time now. So I will speak to you and you will have a discussion on that.
Thank you very much indeed, caller. Yes, indeed. All right, 435-2041. Let's go back to our telephone. OUI Culture, good evening.
Good afternoon, good night.
Yes, go ahead, caller. Quickly, 2 minutes.
Godfrey, you and your team. It's a little bit exciting discussion. But I wonder how many members of your team will recall these words. The voice of Trinidad and Tobago is calling Grenada. Grenadian, please go to the polls on election day to make your choice. Radio 610, Guardian. Now, Gary was not really accepted by the plantocracy.
So good. This is so good.
Were the people with the power. And Gary was disliked by the plantocracy because of his color and his background, and more so because of the impact on the estate workers, okay, with the strikes that he instituted and the better conditions he wanted for the poor. Gary acquired about 37 estates. And those 30-something estates, some were paid for, some were not paid for. But Gary's intention, it seems, was to weaken the plantocracy, who thought this little boy should not have this kind of power. So he tried to weaken the plantocracy, and he tried to broaden his political base with the poor. And you know, as a matter of fact, when Gary began to face evident opposition, he had the rural constables, the Mongoose police, the Mongoose gang, the secret police, and a regiment known as the Green Beasts. And then was Inspector Belma. I saw some things that Inspector Belma did in Gloria. It shocked me. He came after the Gahagan boys, who were obviously well-known members of the Jewel group. And he mashed up all the ceiling in the children's grandmother's house. And a number of things he did. In fact, I saw what he did by a bar right on the Senate, George's bar, one Saturday. It shocked me. As a matter of fact, Gary, was well known as a handsome man, and he would go all out for the girls. I remember going to a carnival Queen show in Queen's Park one night in the early 70s. And there was a girl, a black girl. She was dressed all in Afro style, and she won. She won. As a matter of fact, I learned it was Gary who advised to have her win the crown. And it was a car they gave. And the crowd didn't take it very, very well that night when this girl, I remember the name very well, she took the crown. Okay.
Caller, but sorry, we have to cut you. We've been sorry, but we've been joined by someone. And we need to bring them in.
One more thing.
Quickly, okay.
His popular nightclubs, okay, nightclub and restaurant, Rock Gardens overlooking the port, and Evening Palace in Grand Anse, and the advertisement on the air was come. You'll get all meat from the air, the rivers, the seas, and the forest. And as a matter of fact, somebody came to me one night to tell me, asking me to take him to Evening Palace. I said, no, I cannot go in this place. I'm afraid of these people. Okay? But as I say, a lot of more things that is, Rock Gardens and Evening Palace, these were the places where they exploited lots of people.
Thank you, caller. Thanks a lot indeed. Okay, folks, we've been joined by Mr. Kellen Bob from New York. He's been following, and Kellen, we welcome you. We're happy to have you. And I know you're eager to make a few comments, so we'll give you the opportunity now.
Yeah, so correction, I'm actually in Washington, D.C.
My apologies.
I'm by our friend, Mr. Trump here. But no. I am really, first of all, I heard about this program, but I'm really enjoying this program. Let me compliment whoever it is that decided to produce this. And I'm really enjoying this. And as a matter of fact, while I was listening to the program tonight, I decided to go back to Ewart Lane's book, in which the book, the title of the book is "We Move Tonight." And so in that book, he spoke about the build up to, what they were doing, and, the discipline that the guys had as part of the New Jewel movement in that period. And one of the things that he said, which really struck me at that time, was that it was either Gary was going to kill them, or they were going to kill Gary. So they had to make a decision to move when Gary left Grenada with instructions. Because remember, when Gary said, when he comes back to Grenada, they're going to be in the cemetery. He said that.
But why? I mean, Mr. Gary wasn't a madman.
Never said that.
Well, no. Livingston, he said that. I mean, there is tape. The Associated Press has tape.
Kellon, be careful with tapes. I've heard about tapes so many times.
No. So Eric Gary said, I could pull the tape up right now. And with all due respect to Miss Gloria Payne Banfield, the former leader of the GULP, there is this impression that Sir Eric Gary was this benevolent leader, right? Yes, he was a benevolent leader, right? Some may say that, the ladies loved him and what have you. But he had strong man. He was a strong man as well. He was a strong man. This is not to say that the folks in the revolution were not strong men either. They were as well, right? But I think we have to be careful in giving this revisionist history of Eric Gary as this, this genteel kind of person. He was a politician, and he was Machiavellian as a politician, So, I mean, but I just wanted to say, my only other thing is, I just wish, younger generations could be tuned into something like this. And I've been complaining, and Reese has heard me for years, bemoaning the fact, and scholars and educators here, bemoaning the fact that our history, look, we have October 19th coming up, and a lot of these kids are not aware of that rich history. It's a tragic history, but it's also a rich history. And we have to find a way to ensure that these things are taught in school, because it's not in a systematic fashion. Something like this forum, this platform, this format should be taken to schools, maybe as a caravan or something, right? Where we have this oral history tradition, right? In the spirit of Anti-Tech and others.
But Ken, let me ask you. Let me just ask you. Someone who's been deep in history and all of that. Information like that over the years, as we make that journey, how has all these events, these activities by different individuals, leaders, politicians, different people, how has that affected our way of life through the years?
You mean the events of the 70s and 80s?
Yes. How has it affected our culture? What we do, how we live?
Well, I mean, this is a good example of that, right? I mean, we can look back and reminisce at this period, and I think, you know, my only issue with the way that we tell our history is that sometimes I feel like our history is not told in its full completion. And I think that goes to the legacy of Grenadians liking to keep secrets. Grenadians love to keep secrets. And a lot of folks, look, in my village in Pomrose, I never knew that I had two uncles, well, two cousins really, who were part of the PRG, right? The PRA. And I never knew that. There are a lot of folks that I worked with in Grenada who were part of the Mongoose gang and Gary's Green Beast, as they say, right? And everybody knew that in the village, but nobody spoke about that openly, right? To say, well, yeah, you know, and it's not a matter of, well, at this point, I don't think it should be a matter of shame because the history has already happened. But it should be a matter of properly documenting the history for future generations. I mean, I go to the Smithsonian Museum here in Washington, D.C., and you have the stories of people who fought in the Vietnam War and, the Korean War and all these things. The history is there laid bare for everybody to see. But where is our history? In the museum in Grenada, is there a section dedicated to the period of the 70s and 80s? Is there a section dedicated, for example, to the first revolution of Grenada, right? The 1951 Sky Red Revolution? There isn't. Okay? But we know about Sendell and Bruce and all of these colonial oppressors, as far as I'm concerned. But where is the section on Fedon? Where is the section on how many people knew, for example, that in Latans Junction has a symbolic place in Grenadian history because it was where Sir Eric Gary assembled the masses for the 1951 revolution. There is a memorial there, but how many of us passed that memorial and actually acknowledge that this thing, and St. David's has that rich history. St. David's has revolutionary history. We had the Gary Revolution, and we had the Bishop Revolution, right? And those things need to be properly documented.
Just hold it a bit. I need to go to the telephone line. Just hold a bit.
Yeah.
We Culture, good evening.
Yes, sir. Good night.
Yes, 2 minutes quickly, caller.
Yes. How about they talk about the Green Beast? I want to know how come they name the Green Beast and who call them the Green Beast. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much. Can someone help here? Mrs. Banfield, can you help us here? The caller wants to know why the Defense Force was named the Green Beast.
They wore green uniforms.
Okay, all right. Because I remember at one time they used to also call them the Guanas. They used to call them Guanas. They did.
The Guanas are green.
Yes, indeed. Let's take another call.
Yeah, but it still that explanation doesn't explain the beast part of it.
Well, that's why
were they called beasts? Green are fine, but why were they called beasts? Yeah, because they were fierce and bad and green around.
They used to be good people, right?
Let's
go back to the telephone a bit. We Culture, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, and I'll be brief.
Yes, caller.
They were called Green Beast because they were brutal. That's right. And apart from the green, wasn't the military green, it was real green. Like what we know. Hear this. I just want to leave this little reference. It is true that we have major problem in what is documenting our history, but there is a bit of our history in two documents which I introduced to the people here. What happened in Grenada at that point in time was recorded by the British government because they had moles here and in Barbados. Every living thing that happened, and we would see that in the following document. Hansard reports on the termination of association bill, the termination of association bill of 1973, and the import houses of the parliament and of the British parliament I refer to, and the other one was the Independence Order Bill in the houses of the Parliament. If we read these documents, they're easy to find. If we read them, we'll find out many, many things, even contrary to some of the things that we speak about and have been said here tonight. We will see that what really happened in Grenada was best recorded in the British Parliament than in this here country. We leave it there for now. Have a nice evening, will you?
Thank you very much indeed, caller. Let me just share a little bit here. Someone sent a message on what we spoke earlier. It says, there was a fight at Shine Scott School in Simone at a party when two policemen got blows. Their names were Mundo and Pulun. That was the Saturday, and on the Sunday, Belma came to Paradise looking for the guys believed to be the perpetrators. And when they did not find them, Dundan and Wega paid for it. Livingston, you know Dundan and Wega. Scholar, are you familiar with these names? Dundan and Wega?
I've never heard this.
You've never? Mrs. Banfield, you should be familiar with those names. Dundan and Wega?
Yeah. Never heard about them.
Well, only me and Livingston know about that.
That's the only thing, man.
No. That was a part. I mean, Dundan and Wega are from Paradise.
Yeah.
They are from Paradise, yes. All right.
Yes. We have someone on Facebook saying, I remember my grandparents saying that Gary started well, but some of his supporters that changed the way of life he wanted for Grenada, where he endorsed the behavior because of votes he intended to get from them. So, like in most leadership, they start well, and then they become complacent, and it becomes about votes and...
Well, and it was also for Gary, it was power. I mean, I'm surprised nobody brought up Gary's relationship with Pinochet in Chile. I mean, why would he want to have that kind of relationship? I mean, Pinochet was a strong man, right? And that is not properly acknowledged. I mean, and it should be acknowledged.
Kellan, you would know that the American had a kind of love and hate relationship with Gary. And in terms of getting arms, that was the easiest route. So one of the things I actually noticed with Gary, that he was not aligned he was not aligned, he was not deeply in the bed with the English, the Americans, they didn't fully trust him. Pinochet, that was a noted dictator, was ready to give him arms, and Gary, in his, I don't know if his wisdom or whatsoever, thought the best way to preserve his government was to arm and to have more arms than the opposition. So he armed the military, and that's where he got his arms.
Yeah. No, folks, we're getting close to wrap-up time, and I want us to put a couple of things into perspective here. We've highlighted a number of events, you know, from 1970 upward, and a number of things happened. You know, we saw in the 72 election, Gary won that election, 13-2. I think in St. Patrick's, Scholar, it was Wellington Friday of the GNP defeated Winston White of GLP by 1 vote. The other one was Blair's in Carriacou, of course, but Gary won all the other seats, and he was very popular. I don't know, I've never heard any allegations of wrongdoing in the 72 election. 76, you heard it. I kind of believe them fellas wanted to get power, so they did everything that they had to. That's just my opinion, guys. But let us put it into perspective. All those events, and I'm going to ask you all, and I want you all to respond individually. With all that being said, also take into consideration that some of these activities were also engineered by the people who wanted power. Do you think that it was, or a revolution then in 79 was justified or warranted? Let me start with Livingston, Dr. Nelson.
No, don't give me that title.
Scholar gave me that.
Just completed primary school.
Hey, that's yours.
That's the mind. Godfrey, let me just say, you cannot have a revolution if you do not plan a revolution. I mean, in theories of revolution, it has to be planned. So you may have an uprising, something happen, people go and demonstrate, etc. Like when they talk about the Arab uprising, things happen, the mass people come out, they demand immediately is in a short period. So I am saying the revolution was something that had to be planned, and in Grenada, it had to be planned. So that was my main thing. I cannot still forget the question you asked.
Was it justified? I mean, considering all that happened,
I believe that based on the trajectory, where the opposition was going, that more and more people were going to the opposition. People had started to develop a disdain for Gary, and Gary had fallen to this trap where he started to react. And so for every curfew make, he would get a baton and a clause. So he was overreacting, and people, as I said, a lot of the Mongols gang and the other associates, they would just randomly just meet people on the street and harass them. So with this lack of check and balance, you find that a lot of the youths now had started to develop a disdain and hatred for the Gary and Gary regime. It was just a matter of time. I believe in the next election, I believe the election in 76 was stolen, and the next election that they were going to sweep the poll and they were going to win the election. But I believe the focus was on revolution, and there was a revolution.
Okay. Mrs. Banfield, I ask you the same question.
It was not justified.
Yeah, Mrs. Banfield, do you think, concerning all the events, do you think it was justified?
No, I don't. I honestly don't think it was justified. I believe that they would have won the 81 elections if they had waited. That's my view. And you know why I say that? In the 76 election, you could say that Gary lost 6 seats. He lost 6 seats. In the 72 elections, he swept the polls. So 72, 76. Look at the ratio. He virtually lost the elections.
Scholar, so between 70 to 76, we had a lot of demonstrations, independence, all of that, and a lot of things happened. Your thoughts on whether the revolution at the time was justified, taking everything into consideration?
Well, you have to take everything against the backdrop of all the excesses and all the strongmanism that was purported to have been taking place at that time, right? All of the people felt, and I think Kellan would have said it best when he said that there was that feeling there that it was kill or be killed. If I don't kill you, you'll kill me. And when you have that kind of feeling running through, as through the psyche and the minds of the opposition forces, then they would believe that they were forced, and that there was nothing else that they could have done. The fact of the matter is that with all of those things taking place, one thing is certain: there was the need for change. I mean, it's unequivocal that there was a need for change. If change have come by that means, well, then there's a saying, when black man back against the wall, he does things. You know, you had like a dog and thing. You know, if you have like a dog and he coward and so on, jam it somewhere, and there's no way he could move and see what you do, then he lash out. And I think it's against that backdrop that maybe there was a lash out. But I cannot disagree with Biscuit Banfield and Livingston that maybe if they had waited, they would have won. But the fact that they felt that they couldn't wait, between just from 79 to 81, that they couldn't wait, means that there was some heavy force that would have propelled that action. And so in their minds, definitely they felt that it was a self-defense, really. If I don't do that, I will end up below the dust.
Right. Risi, your little take?
The fact that there was evidence of increased number of seats being won by opposing forces is indicative of there being a need for change. It probably was just going to happen at a slower pace had they waited. But when you hear about all the excesses, all the things that were happening, I mean, some of them, if we put it into today's context, we are not tolerating it. We are not tolerating these things. So I can see why is it that they felt that it was justified to move, because there was too much going on. That love for power, it was just exorbitant now, and it was getting at more people. Hence the reason why the seats were being lost gradually. So I am here not there as to whether they should have waited 5 years. If they felt that they should not have waited, I'm with them.
3 years.
If they thought they should have waited, I'm with them too. But that was their time, you know. And we look at the revolutionary spirit that we have today, and that is how it would have impacted our culture. Those revolutions from the past, you find that today people are not as tolerant about issues and, you know, things that, you know, they understand what is inhumane and what is humane, you know. So I really think that they made the right call during that time.
Right. Kellon, I'll give you the last word. So we have considered a number of things, all the activities. Bearing in mind the issue of waiting, all right? And you also mentioned in one book the issue of killed or be killed also came up. I want to consider here the People's Alliance of 1976 with the involvement of Herbert Blaise. I mean, someone who is, when it comes to stability, it doesn't come better than Herbert Blaise. So you had the Herbert Blaise, you had the GNP factor to contend with. You also had the CDLP, Winston White, who broke off from Eric Gary, formed his own party, and then of course the NJM. Together they were able to win 6 seats. So with Herbert Blaise and the GNP bringing some levels of stability to the whole political atmosphere in Grenada, do you think the issue of kill or be killed was relevant there, and that they couldn't have waited for the next election?
Well, I think it would have been relevant, because in as much as Herbert Blaise, you had that, and to me, that People's Alliance was just an alliance of convenience to be able to have the capacity to defeat Eric Gary. But we also have to appreciate the context that Herbert Blaise, Winston White, the NJM, they were all ideologically opposed to each other, right? The NJM, they had a particular ideology that was in line with the socialist movement, the socialist wave that was happening in the Caribbean at the time. So I think we have to put it in that context, and I don't think that alliance would have worked, right? In the way that we would have imagined it. I don't think it would have worked, simply because these guys were ideologically opposed. It was a marriage of convenience, really, right? It was an instance where they needed to form an opposition in the same way that the NDC and I believe it was it the GULP and PLM at the time with Francis Alexis tried to form an alliance to defeat the NNP in the early 2000s, right? So, and again, these people were also ideologically opposed. And so I think we also have to put it within the context of what was happening in the Caribbean at the time, right? Over in Guyana, you had the socialist uprisings. You had people like, the Walter Rodney riots and so on happening. You had the Black Power riots happening in Trinidad and Tobago that was brutally put down by Eric Williams, right? And you had the Fidel Castro revolution that was supporting a lot of these socialist movements in the Caribbean. And it was also at the height of the Cold War, right? And remember, the Caribbean was this theater of Cold War influence between the United States and Russia. So all of these, you had all of these influences happening. And so I believe, the notion that these folks would have waited, and quite frankly, I don't think Gary would have given up, honestly, in that 1981 election. I think his grip on power, he wanted to maintain that grip on power. And I also honestly believe that he would have liquidated Maurice Bishop and others before they were actually liquidated in 1983. That's what I believe as well. It was just a situation where, things were really, really getting to a fever pitch in Grenada at the time.
Kellan, listening to you, guys, and I know it's late, but listen to you, Kellan. One thing stuck out at me, an alliance of convenience, and the fact that the NJM and the GNP and the CDLP were opposed ideologically. Am I to understand here then that the NJM really didn't stand a chance by themselves, because clearly to form a 6-seat alliance you needed the support of GNP and CDLP. This is saying to me, and Gary still winning 9 seats, that the NJM did not command a majority in Grenada at the time.
I don't think they did. I think they were getting to that place where they would have commanded a majority, but we have to remember that, Gary called them hot and sweaty radicals. I mean, if we think about Gary's age, I mean, and Grenadians there is an ageism attitude in Grenada. Bishop and these guys just came back from law school. They came back from university, from the States and England and wherever, right? And they were young. They were really young. Think about it. These guys were in their 30s. Some of them in their 20s, right? The guys who took over the barracks in True Blue were teenagers. GBSS and PDC boys. These were young people. And we have an attitude around young people getting involved in politics in Grenada, except if they do so through a particular party or whatever the case might be. But these guys were coming young and fresh, okay? And
hot and sweaty.
Hot and sweaty, right. As you said, they were hot and sweaty. So I honestly don't think it would have, they would have, gained the critical mass and the capacity to win an election by themselves in that period of time. It might have happened in 1981, but again, hindsight is 2020, and here we are.
All right. I want to thank you guys so very much. Kellan, I want to thank you for joining us. It was indeed a pleasure having you, and please spread the word.
I will.
Of course, we want to continue to encourage you to be with us. Scholar, Livingston, Reese, Mrs. Banfield, I thank you also very much for making this a program that so many people are into as we go back and look at the events that has shaped our culture, and of course events that will continue to shape our culture as we live on. So again, thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to being back with you guys next Friday evening. Thanks a lot, and have a good night.
All right. Good night.
All the best. Yes, indeed.